Hello and welcome to the Matt Bird Show. I'm so pleased you have chosen to watch this programme. Together we are going to explore how biblical principles, when effectively applied to our lives, can help us build life-transforming relationships in our family, our business and our community. We're going to look at the Bible as a book of relationships, not a book of religion. It is a living record of how God has reached out throughout human history to have a relationship with humanity. So when we read it, we learn about how to build a relationship with God and with one another. Interestingly, the majority of the characters within the Bible were not professional religious leaders, but people like us, parents and children, brothers and sisters, business owners and employees, civic leaders and neighbours, as well as followers of Jesus Christ and members of his church. There is a story about a young man who lived in the city of Lystra. He was a disciple of Jesus Christ, a faith that he had acquired from his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. He was from a mixed race family with a Jewish mother and a Greek father. Because the believers in his own city and neighbouring cities spoke so well of him, the Apostle Paul invited the young man to accompany him on his travels. He was widely known that the young man's father was Greek and therefore uncircumcised. But since this could be an obstacle to the Jews finding faith, Paul expected him to be circumcised. Paul's view was that to the weak in faith, I became weak in faith to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. The young man responded well to Paul, who soon regarded his new co-worker like his own son. He was loyal and trustworthy, unlike others he had come across. In time, the young man became Paul's protege, and so he sent him on special missions to the church in cities like Corinth, Philippi and Thessalonica. This, of course, is the story of Timothy. When I think about what I can learn from his life about relationships, I realise that it's all about unconscious assimilation. For me, the principle of unconscious assimilation explains that we become like those people we spend most frequent and meaningful time with. Timothy acquired his faith through his mum, grandmother, and through Paul. You can imagine that growing up in a faith-saturated family, he naturally developed faith in Jesus Christ. Timothy's firm foundation in faith grew and matured as he travelled extensively with Paul, preaching about Jesus, supporting churches and sharing his faith across the world. Timothy's experience in his family and as an apprentice in the company of Paul are a perfect example of the ultimate experience of unconscious assimilation. Unconscious assimilation is based on learning by osmosis, which means we absorb insights and behaviours from the people we spend most frequent and meaningful time with. To put it another way, life is caught rather than taught. If you move to a city with a linguistic accent that is different to your own, it won't be too long before you begin picking it up for yourself. If you live with a group of people and you'll find that you develop shared habits and mannerisms, begin working regularly with a team of people and you'll start to think in similar ways, which helps you bond as a group. Remember that the people we choose to spend most frequent and meaningful time with can have a negative impact as well as a positive impact. If we get in with the wrong sorts of people, it can drag us down. This is one of the huge challenges for ex-offenders. They leave prison with a very small amount of money, return to their community and often fall in with the same negative relationships that led them to their imprisonment in the first place. Unconscious assimilation tragically leads 59% of those who leave prison in the UK reoffending within 12 months. In Homer's ancient Greek classic Odyssey, Odysseus, king of Ithaca, is about to leave to fight in the Trojan War and is uncertain how long he will be gone or even if he will return. So he entrusts the care of his son to Melchius and household to his close friend and advisor. The name of that friend was mentor, which is where we get the term we use today. Finding ex-offenders, community mentors who can become a friend and advisor to help them reintegrate into the community can be transformational. With the support of a mentor, they can build positive friendships, secure and hold down a job, and maintain their accommodation, all of which is absolutely essential if they are to stay out of prison. We can all benefit from having a mentor in our lives who we can learn from by way of unconscious assimilation. I remember going for one of my regular monthly lunches with my friend and mentor, Paul Williams. On this particular occasion, I had a decision to make about my future that I wanted to seek his advice and wisdom on. At the appropriate moment, I asked him what he thought I should do. And he replied that he believed in me and would support me whatever I decided to do. It was so profound to have someone who believed so much in me that they trusted me to make the decision and offered me their unconditional support, whatever path I took. Looking back now, I believe I caught something from Paul. He was a very enterprising and resourceful person, and spending time with him has helped me become more enterprising and resourceful than I would have ever been otherwise. As I sit and watch the Olympics, I'm aware how many competitors are mentored and coached by former Olympians and medal winners. It is similar in the world of music. Many former chart-topping performers and musicians become mentors and agents to the next generation of leading artists. In both cases, it comes down to the principle of unconscious assimilation. We can choose to spend frequent and meaningful time with those people that we want to become like in some way. The Apostle Paul wrote to Timothy, advising him, "And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others." Let's consider what we have learnt and how we can pass it on to others. My special guest today is a youth worker, social entrepreneur and founder of London Reclaimed. Mike Biddulph, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Matt.
It's great you're joining us on the show. Now, today we've been looking at Timothy, and I couldn't think of anybody more that I would want to interview on the subject and principle of unconscious assimilation. So what is it about Timothy and the mentoring that happens around his life that most inspires you?
I'm just really inspired by the fact that Timothy always put himself in positions where he could learn off others. He could learn off Paul, he could learn off those around him. And I just think, as someone who's had to do that myself through life, I can look and think, well, it's very easy not to put yourself in a position of vulnerability, because as soon as you allow someone to ask questions about your life, to guide you, to help you, you're putting yourself in a place of vulnerability. So I think I've always amazed by the fact he had loads of great leadership qualities. He was obviously, he drew people to him and he did loads of great stuff. But yeah, he allowed himself the space and the time to learn of people. And I think it's very easy to not do that, either through fear of opening up or through fear of someone telling you or kind of highlighting certain areas in your life.
What you don't want to hear.
Yeah, exactly, what you don't want to hear. Who wants to hear that they might be slightly off track? But the beautiful thing about the whole relationship is it's trust and it's love, and it comes out of that place of trust and love. It doesn't come dictatorially, it doesn't come top down, it's just out of a real working relationship and openness. And as I said, vulnerability, great stuff can happen. And I guess for me that just resonates because my character sometimes is to not open up with people, and my character quite often is to not be a closed book, but just I'm careful, obviously, who I let in, but I sometimes don't like telling me what to do. I like making my own decisions on my own time. You know, I like that. So for me to put myself in a place where I'm then saying, okay, I actually need to learn, and there are things that I don't know, and there are things that I'd love to get some better perspective or understanding on. Is a really good place to be.
And Timothy had that posture, didn't he, towards
Yes.
Paul
Yep.
and his mother and grandmother.
Yep.
He was obviously a very teachable.
Yeah.
Although he may have struggled with it at times,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
put himself in that place, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is sometimes a notion where if you're too teachable, I think sometimes that's put almost as an anti-leader kind of character, or
Yeah.
it's sometimes seen as weak. I just don't see it like that. I think we need to be moldable. If we're not moldable and we're not changeable, then we're just static.
Yeah.
And I think you can be very assertive, very driven, very assertive, and be teachable.
Yeah. And let me ask you a question. Did you learn most at school, or have you learnt most through your mentoring relationships in life?
Yes, me and school, we did not get on that well. So I think the difficulty with the education system, especially for someone like me, is I don't want to sit still. I don't want to be told what to do in a very rigid manner.
Yeah.
And I was just a pain in the bum, to be honest, at school. So for me, most of my learning has happened either outside of school or since school. So in those mentoring relationships and on the journey.
Yeah.
When you're journeying with someone, it's fun. If you're sat down and someone's just telling you what you should believe, suddenly you feel on the back foot and like you just have to learn this.
Yeah.
There's no conversation.
Yeah.
And I guess conversation is key for me because when you talk about something, you outwork it together.
Yeah. Jesus was often described as rabbi or teacher.
Yep.
When did you discover Jesus as your rabbi, as your teacher?
I think, I was brought up in a Christian home. My parents pastored a little church, actually.
Okay.
So from a really early age, I begun to get some of these this understanding. For me, it was a lovely model because my parents always pastored. It was almost the anti-church, Matt. They pastored a real ragtag bunch of people who wouldn't fit in a normal...
Looked a bit like the disciples.
Yeah, exactly. Who wouldn't fit in a normal, conventional, nice-looking, sounding church. So it was just a hilarious upbringing, rubbing shoulders with people from all walks of life that wouldn't necessarily have identified themselves as Christian before they join this group, and then they think, wow, that's who Jesus is for.
Yeah.
For the people that don't quite fit in with the establishment.
Yeah.
So it was early on for me personally. I guess it's not that I didn't believe; it was just irrelevant. You know, when you're so familiar with something, it doesn't captivate you. And as I got older, I realised that faith isn't just a belief system; it's a call to action. So for me, I'd understood, the basic belief system of Christianity, whatever that looks like. But I guess for me, I needed to be caught by something bigger than either myself or than a set of beliefs. And you could call it anything. You could call it the kingdom of heaven. You could call it, the wider Christian community work. You could call it, whatever you want to call it.
And is that why you do what you do now? I mean, London Reclaimed.
100%, because yes, I've got a, set of beliefs. Yes, Jesus is my God, but on top of all of that, that's an invitation to a bigger story.
Yeah.
And I think quite often we find the difficulties with the church, with Christianity, is that there aren't those wider invitations to get involved in something bigger. And if there aren't invitations to get involved in something bigger, it just becomes theoretical.
You do nothing, or you create something bigger.
Exactly.
Which is what you've done.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us about your something bigger, London Reclaimed.
So London Reclaimed is an employment charity. We work with 16 to 25-year-olds.
Yeah.
We train, educate, mentor and employ them. And we've got 2 businesses that are held as part of that charity, so we can authentically train, mentor and employ them in actual businesses. So we run a furniture company called Goldfinch Furniture, and we run a cafe called Lumberjack Cafe. And it's a space where young people who wouldn't often get an opportunity to work get their first job. So we, more often than not, and it's not always, but we more often than not will employ someone with the idea of how valuable they're going to become in about a year's time when their course and employment finishes with us, and we get them their next job.
So make this real for us, Mike. Tell us about an example of a young person, you know, that you might have taken or have taken on.
So I set up London Reclaimed with 2 young people in mind because it needed to be personal, and I actually employed one of them. That's a 50% rate. And the guy that I employed, he had never had a job. No one in his...
How old was he?
He was 19. He'd never had a job. No one in his family, except for his mum's boyfriend, had ever had a job generations back. So it was a kind of a non-working family, and he didn't know work etiquette, work ethos, work anything. He came from a family where love and respect and honour kind of were there, but it was all skewed. If there was a problem with if someone had troubled a member of the family, instead of talking about it and working out his emotional needs and and outworking a solution, they'd just grab some baseball bats and ran out the door to find whoever was giving their family hassle. It was though there was protection and support, it was all outworked in the wrong way. So he came on board with us on one of his first weeks with us. He turned up and he was sweating and riding a bike. And he said, I thought I was going to be late. And I said, looked at my watch and I said, well, good job you're not late. And he said, halfway here, I realised I was going to be late, so I decided to ride in. And I said, how did you decide to ride in halfway here? And he'd nicked a bike to get in on time. so, you know, though the commitment to the cause of keeping his job and not getting in trouble with me actually meant at least he had that part down, but it meant he stole a bike to get into work on time. So it's just a hilarious, sometimes unbelievably frustrating, but mainly rewarding journey of allowing young people to see how they can positively contribute, not just to their local community, but society as a whole, because everyone needs the opportunity to belong and to work. And I think it's just a human inbuilt nature.
I mean, we used to set the alarm clock, getting up in the morning, getting to work on time, organising our days, our weeks, our priorities, all of that. I mean, these young people that you work with, have they got those skills?
No. So, I mean, you know, another guy we worked with, he joined us when he was, I think he was about 22 when he joined us. Again, never had a job before, out of jail, left school at 14, no qualifications, spent time inside, came out, and then their days and nights just flow into one. So there is no routine, rigidity. So it's actually, you're employing someone who, though you see potential in, you know you're going to have to walk through, mentor the whole process of waking up on time, eating breakfast, getting in, having lunch. It's that whole timekeeping. So at first, quite often, they'll end up, first month, they might end up being late fairly regularly. They might end up not wearing the right gear. They might end up not communicating. I think that's the key, because we'll always let them know there will always be unforeseen circumstances that might affect your day, your work, your family life, but it's how you communicate that. So if you can call in the morning and let us know, that makes a huge difference. And to begin with, just the basic, simple understanding of, I've got to phone my boss because I'm now having to take my kid to nursery and I didn't think I would have to. You're not
talking at the moment about teaching them how to work with wood and make furniture.
That is a million miles down the line.
You're just talking about getting them out, getting to work,
getting them up,
just self-discipline.
Self-discipline. So I guess what we're not, though, is a youth club. So there has to be some element of desire in them to work, otherwise we can't do it. So after that month's up, ease them in. It is a job, and though it's not 3 strikes and you're out, it is a job. There is disciplinary procedure. There are action plans. We have had to let young people go before. It's not a do anything and you're still in. But you've just got to tease out that responsibility and understanding, and it takes a bit of time this kind of a stick and carrot approach.
Yeah, and so how long does it take you to kind of help a young person develop the life skills and then the furniture making skills?
Yeah, they run parallel. We run a year course.
Yeah.
So they're with us for a year. They're paid properly. We don't even pay them apprenticeship wages. They're paid 3 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, properly. It takes a year. Sometimes someone's going to pick up the woodworking skills really quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes someone's going to be more disciplined and be able to get up. But generally speaking, we give them a year and we don't expect any kind of value brought back into that company, either the workshop or the cafe, for the first six months. We don't tell them that, but we're not bargaining on that. We are not imagining them to be income generating for the company before that time, because you can't expect it. We're giving young people jobs that no one else are going to often give their first job to. There are always exceptions. We do take, you know, right from completely unemployable right the way through to they are employable but they've made some bad life choices and are now unemployable. Yeah. But yeah, it's an exciting journey.
Yeah. So what is it, you know, in Paul and Timothy's relationship? Yeah. What is it that you think made the difference? What is it you think Timothy benefited from so much in that mentoring relationship? Because it's quite different than the ones you're describing. You're describing troubled young people, very troubled young people being mentored. Paul and Timothy, it was a little bit different.
Yeah, it was, I think, but the building blocks of a mentoring relationship are the same, however you contextualise it. So for me, it comes down to communication, trust, and forgiveness. So the communication, saying, well, we're going to talk through any situation that might arise, and you look at Paul and Timothy and the way they communicated, the way they did things, the way Paul brought him along to things and then entrusted him to do them himself. Yeah. You know, it's the communication and that trust to say, well, actually, I believe in you enough to go and do it. Yeah. I'll tell the boys, I believe in you. I wouldn't have employed you if I didn't think that you were good enough. Yeah. It doesn't mean that they always act or behave like they're good enough. Yeah. But, you know, we employ them. And then that final one is forgiveness. Yeah. You know, for us, it isn't just you fluff it up and you've gone. If that was the case with me, no one would have ever mentored me, or they would have for about 6 months until I fluffed up. Yeah. And then they'll have said, OK, Mike, you know, I don't think I can handle you anymore. Yeah. Yeah, I think, however it's contextualised, I think they're the key elements for me. Yeah. And so if somebody's listening to this show right now, they're thinking, actually, I really want a mentor. What do you encourage them to do? So I speak in churches a lot, and often at the end of a service, somebody will come up to me and say, Matt, can you be my mentor? But I don't know them from Adam. So I'm never going to be their mentor. I'm not going to make that commitment to them. So if somebody's out there who wants a mentor, how would you encourage them to go about it? Because they can't all come and work for you. No, I mean, no. Yeah. So where do they start? Well, I guess for me also, and I'll probably get onto this, but for me it's a spread of mentors. So instead, I think quite often we're looking at the one-on-one, one mentor, one mentee. In my personal life, I've looked at those people around me with whom I value the relationship. I see that they're possibly 1 or 2 steps ahead in certain areas of their life, and not just, oh, they've got a nice car or a house, but, oh, they seem really wise. They seem like they can handle their anger quite well. They seem like they're making great choices, impacting their community. So I've spread it out in my life. So I'd say to anyone listening, just look at those people in their lives and say, are there 1 or 2 people with which there are certain elements that you really admire? Yeah. And just be honest about that. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to admit to the person that you really admire them for X, Y, and Z, but say, I really love the way you engage with your community. I really love the way you are with your children. I'd like to be a parent like that. Yeah. Can you help me? Can you help me? That's as simple as it is. Yeah. And I guess what's also nice is it's always a two-way relationship. Yeah. For me, when I had my first child, about four years ago, I was able to go to a few of the boys that we employ who already had children, even though we live quite different lives, they're so much younger than me. Yeah. And I was able to say, you know, tell me, how is how do you get them to sleep?
Yeah.
What do you feed them? Am I going to be okay?
Yeah.
And I was able to ask them for help.
I bet that did wonders for their self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you don't have to take on every piece of advice you get from everyone, but some of the stuff they gave me and told me and shared with me, I actually did.
Yeah.
So I think that's really nice when a mentor-mentee relationship is firstly spread across a few people,
Yeah.
and secondly, it has to be both ways. Even though maybe the majority of stuff flows one way,
Yeah.
it can't exclusively flow one way. Otherwise, it's not a friendship.
Wow. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, for your really nitty-gritty stories and examples of how that mentoring and how that unconscious assimilation takes place. You've been fantastic, so thank you so very much. As we wrap up the show today, I want to leave you with a couple of takeaway questions to help you apply the principle of unconscious assimilation. Firstly, what Paul-like people do you spend most frequent and meaningful time with, and what are you learning from them? And secondly, what Timothy-like people could you spend more frequent and meaningful time with, and what do you think they will learn from you? It would be great to hear some of your life-transforming stories, and specifically how you've experienced unconscious assimilation. Please take a moment right now to post a short comment or testimonial on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, so that how God has helped work in your life can also encourage others. As you go about your day, remember the story of Timothy and the principle of unconscious assimilation, which explains that we become like those people we spend most frequent and meaningful time with. Thank you for joining me on the Matt Bird Show today. I very much look forward to seeing you next week to explore how Bible principles can help you build life-transforming relationships in your family, your business, and your community. Goodbye for now.